right, guys, I'm really excited to bring in our next guest. We're going to be joined by Lauren Olson, and she's with Centric. And this is a really cool company. So they're certified compostable for food service, and Lauren is a sustainability expert. So she's going to jump in to give us some ideas to keep our backyard barbecues eco-friendly. And I am all about this. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, I was looking at Centric's Instagram, and I'm so impressed at how you guys, first off, you share those startling facts, but you do it in a way that, you know, people looking at your Instagram, you can fix it. You give tips and you help people help the planet. So what are some tips you can share with us today?
Well, yeah, if you're planning your 4th of July backyard barbecue, one of the big tips that you can do is really cut down on the amount of meat that you're eating. It's surprising, but, livestock industry accounts for like somewhere around 18% of our greenhouse gases. So anything you can do to cut back on that would be really great. Always reuse reusables if you can, but if you're worried about COVID-19 or other things, Centric makes great plant-based products, all fully compostable. So you can get your plates and your cutlery and all of that stuff. And not have to really worry about your effect on the planet.
So when you just mentioned that about the livestock, would that be the actual livestock or the production of it that's contributing to that 18%?
It's the production. And then also, it's surprising, but, cows, for example, they fart like a lot of methane, and methane is a very potent greenhouse gas. So it's about 25% or 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide in terms of creating climate change.
Oh, and wow. Then I think, don't I understand too, is that if you choose to grill meat, doesn't grilling meat also release more emissions into the air?
I know in a study done about like charcoal grills, which is natural gas is supposed to be better in terms of the environmental footprint. But if you are going to use charcoal, try to get more of a natural charcoal, like maybe like loose lump or something like that, rather than maybe like the more generic type of charcoal.
It's so funny because you think about it, like literally now places like, or companies like you have gotten it down to a science where every little corner of, like, say, a backyard barbecue can be done eco-friendly.
Yeah, I mean, it's really phenomenal the amount of things that people can do now to really go green. I think we were so limited for such a long period of time of how we could really participate in helping the environment. And it's really great to see compostable products, local agriculture, organic food, all of that, plant-based alternatives to meat come into mainstream.
I think I saw something on your website that talked about portion sizing, or I saw it somewhere. It talked about how portion sizing and planning that out a little bit more would help in terms of increased sustainability for your cookout.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, food waste is a big form of waste. And whenever you put food into a landfill, again, you're going to be creating methane, which is that potent greenhouse gas. So really, making sure you're not bringing excessive amounts of food. Another thing in terms of portioning is not buying individually packaged things. I know it's like really convenient and all that stuff to maybe get like individual fun-sized chips, but instead maybe think about getting a big bag of chips and then, dueling that out responsibly in response to our COVID-19 sort of pandemic new era of picnicking.
That's hard because the whole idea behind a cookout is everyone bring as much food as you can and eat it as you can.
I know it's so hard because you want to eat everything family style, right? But it's, with these era, you got to really pay attention to who's touching what and, make sure that everybody's taking safety precautions on that.
Now, if somebody's going to go that next step and do their own composting at home, can you give tips for that? Because I've always looked into it. I'm like, this is great. And I'm like, oh, this is a lot. I don't know if I could actually do it at home.
Yeah, I know for me, I live in an apartment, so it gets even that higher level of difficulty. I don't have like a backyard where I can just experiment with. And I know that's for a lot of people too. Even a condo association might not allow a compost pile. So I have a tumbler system. So it's a nice contained system. And in that system, it's really best to stick to about 3 parts brown and 1 part green. So brown would be things like leaves and twigs, more like dead stuff. And then your green stuff is like your food scraps. So the big thing about it is creating that recipe so that you have success by mixing the components. And I just try to mix it, at least once a week, be gentle on myself, add some water as needed, and just kind of see where it goes and try not to take it too seriously, take it more as like a home experiment and see if I can create something by the end of the season.
I love that.
Wow. Yeah, it's so impressive. I need to get into compost. I mean, I try so hard just to be the right recycler. I clean out all of my, to-go containers when there's food out before I put in the recycling bin. I mean, what are other simple, easy tips that people who are just getting into maybe the eco-friendly life can actually adapt to their everyday lifestyles?
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is, not buying single-use water bottles. For example, just getting a water bottle and refilling it. I think a lot of people have been on that bandwagon for a while, but then when I saw people panic buying and people were buying like bottled water, which was funny because they're going to be at home. Another thing you can do at home for when you're cleaning up, like your kitchen or other messes, is get a set of reusable towels, or I even like cut up an old towel and then just like sew it around the edges. And then I use those towels rather than paper towel. And it's nice because it's like one less thing to buy. I always have them. I can just wash them at home. So it's more convenient for me as well, like not to buy paper towel.
Yeah, I think people get overwhelmed by a lot of things. We have twins. We did cloth diapers, and we were like, okay, listen, we're going to do cloth diapers during the day and disposables at night because it's a little bit easier to use the disposables at night. But at least we're making an effort. Same thing like with Lysol wipes. Instead of buying wipes, we had torn up, old like shreds of towel and made bleach container and then made our own. Like there are little things you can do that make huge differences in the long run.
Yeah, and that's huge. And you also like saved a whole bunch of money and all the plastic packaging that comes with it. So all that embodied energy you avoided by, just doing your own system. So that's great. And, you probably won't be able to find it at the time anyway. So you're thinking very creatively like that.
Lauren, I'm looking at our Facebook comments, and one of our viewers has a really good question. She writes in, my friend lives in Seattle and they compost everything. Why is it so much more popular there? And how do we get Chicago to compost just as much or more than just trash and recycling?
Yeah, it's a real problem. It's kind of scattered all over the country, whether you can compost certain things. You mentioned recycling rules. Recycling rules change all over the country too. It's all market-based. So in Seattle, they have a really robust market for compost, and they were really at the forefront of composting when that all started 20, 30 some years ago in terms of municipal composting. And, it's a matter of other composters getting monetary incentive or something like that to be able to accept more types of items, such as, our cutlery and our plates and things like that. Those aren't accepted everywhere in the country. So we're getting there, but, it's all a matter of funding and will, and as well as community support. So one of the big things you can do is talk to your local officials and be like, hey, I really want to see this program.
Because that policy, that really does play a role in it. Because look at right here in Chicago. I mean, we just got blue cans in my lifetime. Maybe I was in high school or something. I'm not sure. But just where that was widely distributed to the city of Chicago, having the blue can system, and not even everything you can put in there. And I think a lot of people are not even 100% sure what you can and cannot recycle. But that policy can really go a long way.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And, all of those changes too with recycling, right now, I think it was in 2008, China really cut back on the amount of things that they were taking, and that totally changed the industry. So you probably have seen your recycling rules change quite a bit over the last decade or more.
And just on the same vein as that, I was actually in London a few months ago, and it was widespread. Just going out to different restaurants and everything, how they are using different kinds of cutlery and how they're recycling it. And I saw a lot of different recycling trash cans on the street. And so that's another example of how policy changes it. And obviously they have a huge population in a really small area in London. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, the European Union has all these directives about single-use plastic, and they outlaw certain things. They do studies on what type of plastic shows up in the ocean, and then they target those particular products. So they're really ahead of the game on all of that.
Yeah, and it's such a bummer here, like where we are in the suburbs too. Like if you get one thing wrong in your recycling bin, they dump the whole thing in the garbage. And I get it because they don't have the people to go through it, and like it's not cleaned out enough, it can't go through the recycle. But it's like, you know, we're taking little bitty steps when we could be taking bigger steps if people would all just try a little bit more.
Yeah, and it's hard too. I feel for recyclers because they're
Yeah.
trying to make a profit, right? And they're kind of stuck in this model where the city's like, oh, you need to be able to get this much money from your recyclables in the end of the game. And they're like, you know, is it worth sorting this? They really messed it up. And so it's difficult. You know, I think we're all kind of in this weird in-between space where we all want to do the right thing, but maybe the systems aren't in place. So we just got to keep advocating and keep doing it. And hopefully in 20 years, we'll be having a totally different conversation.
Right. Yes. Well, I appreciate Amy's approach. It can be such a difficult transformation to live a life like this, but the little bit you can do here and there just goes such a long way. Like maybe it's just not buying water bottles, or maybe it's, you know, our city already doesn't do plastic bags, but, you know, if you can eliminate plastic someplace else, like doing a little bit here and a little bit there, I think it just goes so far.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. You know, just look at it incrementally and, you know, always be kind to yourself because, you know, you're trying to do the best you can. And we all have obviously very busy, stressful lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once you start doing it, it just becomes the daily routine and it gets easier and you don't even think about it. I don't even think about recycling anymore. It's like back of my hand, you know?
When you start that, you see how much you really can recycle. And you're like, oh my gosh, most of what comes into your house is recyclable. It's kind of shocking.
And something my roommates and I just did, we got reusable straws. We love straws here. We got reusable ones. We love them. They're great.
Yeah.
Once
I like the stainless steel ones.
Well, Lauren, thank you
so
so much
for
for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was great talking with you all.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you guys can check out World Centric. All their information is coming up on the screen. They got one tag for all their platforms. I love you that much more already. And you can check them out at their website at worldcentric.com. Our 4th of July's are allowed to be more eco-friendly, Lauren, I'll tell you.